Now every time you create a new message, as you can see here, you have down in the message body, the main body of the email, is the default font. In other words, when I click anywhere within the text, up on the message tab in the basic text group it says that the font is type Calibri and it's size 11. Well, what if I don't want that to be my default font? I want it to be something else. So every time I create a new message, instead of being Calibri, how about Arial or Times New Roman? Well, to set your default fonts for your email messages, it can be done one of two ways. Probably the easiest and simplest way is to first create your email message, okay, and then to set the defaults up, you want to come up here in the email message, click on the Format Text tab, go to the Styles group, click on the Change Styles drop-down arrow, go to Fonts, and then over to the left you got a list of these different fonts, okay? Anytime you hover over one of these, you can see over here it's updating. So if I hover over this, now I've got a question. Is it showing the Verdana or the Arial font? The difference between the two here is Verdana is for any heading style fonts that you have. Over here I don't have any headings applied to it. You can see up here it's all normal. So the second font down below, the smaller one, is the normal text. That's what it's going to display in. All your normal text is going to be displayed in Arial, or if I select this it'll be Cambria, or down here Times New Roman. So if I go ahead and I select that, it means that Arial is going to be applied to any text that has a heading style applied to it. So if I come up here and say hi everyone, select it, come up here and say now you're heading 1, when I click on it, you see up at the top it's Arial. Down below it's Times New Roman. Well, isn't that the same thing when I come down to my fonts listed here? Arial is the heading and Times New Roman is the body of the text. That's all that means, okay? So your body of your text by default is always going to be Times New Roman. So you can come down here, select whatever defaults are listed here. If you don't like it, you can create new theme fonts. So your heading font's going to be, well, it could be Arial, then some other body of your font could be something else. So you can create your own customs. But once I go ahead and I select the one that I like, then if I want this to be the default from here on out in all new messages, I'll come up here and click on Change Styles again, and then I'll go ahead and say set this as the default. When I click on it, that's it. So when I close out, or I send off my message, I'm going to go ahead and close out, and I create a new message. Anytime I come down here in the body and I start typing, notice that the font here for the body is Times New Roman. If I go ahead and I select this and I come up to the Format Text and I say you're now heading 1, it changes from Times New Roman to Arial. So that's always going to be the default from here on out until I go back to my Change Styles. I select a different font down here, a custom or built-in font, and then I come back and set that as the default and so on. Now I said there's two ways to change the default fonts for your Microsoft Outlook 2007 email messages, right? This is one way. The other way is a bit tricky in that, let me close out of here and say no, I don't want to save it, in that once you change the default font, this other way that I'm about to show you, you can no longer change your default fonts in a message. Come up here and show you the second way, click on Tools and go down to Options, click on the Mail Format tab and go down to where it says Stationery and Fonts and click on that button. See, by default, it's got the font when you create new email messages, and then it's got the different font when you want to reply or forward your messages, and remember it's in blue, and then basically composing and reading plain text messages. In other words, plain text means you don't have a bunch of formatting applied to it. It's all just plain, simple text. Okay. When you click on the font button, notice that it doesn't say Cambria, although it looks like Cambria or Calibri. They almost look the same. It says Body. The reason why it says Body is because this is Microsoft Outlook's programming that allows us that when we want to change our fonts through the email message that we just learned a few seconds ago, that it's based upon the body. Once I get out of the body and I actually select a different font, like let's say Arial, and I say size 10 and click OK. Now remember, this is going to be for all new mail messages. When I change it from body, that means when I click OK and I click OK, again, when I click on the new message down below, it's going to be in Arial, whatever I type, of course, and you can see it right here, Arial size 10. But because I got out of the body, again, I'm focusing on that. When I try to format my text and change the styles from this way, again, this other way that I showed you earlier on, to change your fonts, it doesn't affect it whatsoever. See how I hover over it? Because that body font allows it to pivot between these other fonts. Once I remove the body font and I actually define it as something besides body but just Arial, Verdana, Monotype Corsiva. It no longer has an effect when I try to choose one of their built-in or custom fonts here from their styles. It overrides it, so this doesn't mean anything anymore. So let me go ahead and close out and say no. And then go back to Tools, to Options, Mail Format, Stationary Fonts. So what I do is I come in here and I say, okay, every time I create a new email message, it's going to be Arial and it's going to be size 10. And when I reply, it's going to be, let me come up here and type in Arial. And then once I type it in, I can select Arial down below and say it's size 10. And you can see in the preview down below what it's going to look like. Click OK. Anytime I have plain text messages, again, I'm changing it from the default body and I'm saying Arial, select it, size 10, click OK. Click OK, click OK. Now every new message is always going to have Arial. When I create a new message, when I reply to somebody, or I create a plain text message. And this, when I go to my new message, this feature over here on the Format Text tab, the Change Styles, is totally overridden. It has no effect. This won't work anymore. If I do want it to work, and I do like the Change Styles feature, then I have to go back to Tools, to Options, to my Mail Format, to my Stationery and Fonts, and I have to click on the Font button, and I have to change it back to Body. Now, this is something interesting. Notice that plus Body, the default, can't be found. You have to actually scroll down and scroll up, and it appears. Kind of weird, huh? Well, anyways, there's plus Body, which is going to be, I believe it's Calibri again. And then we want it to be size 11, and then click OK. There it is. So we're back to normal, and I'd have to change it on my replies and forwardings and my plain text if I want it to be all uniformed. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.